Hey, Dave Duford here at the Ford Insurance Group, where I train agents to become top producers in final expense Medicare and annuities. Make sure you check out davidduford.com/FAQ for more information. I'm here with Todd Hoyseth, right? Say the right last name correctly?
Yep, that's right.
Yes, I just asked you like 10 seconds ago, but you know how the brain just flops like that. So Todd is here to talk about his success as a new mortgage protection agent. And he wrote in his first fourth quarter, still within the first 6 months of starting, he wrote $115,000 in 90 days. And the reason I've got Todd on here is really just to provide perspective as a new agent, what steps he took to write as much business as he did, because as an agency owner myself, this is rare to find somebody who just dials right into it and crushes it. So the purpose of this video is really just to provide perspective, learn what Todd is doing, what he thinks has contributed to his success. We're also going to kind of delve into what his business looks like from day to day, running appointments, how his presentation looks, and then kind of get some advice, kind of what he would suggest agents to do in order to duplicate his results. So Todd, how you doing?
I'm doing well, sir. Appreciate the opportunity to be on.
Yeah, man. So give us a rundown about a little bit about yourself and why you decided to get in insurance.
Yeah. So I before I was in insurance here with Symmetry, I was in the ministry, and that was what I went to college to do. Did 4 years of Bible college, and then 12 years as a youth pastor, and that's how I ended up in Kansas. I grew up in Minnesota, Bible college in Oklahoma, and then straight to work for the church there in Kansas. And so I ended up here, and then over a lot of details, a lot of backstory and all of that, but ended up having to kind of just take a step back from ministry, a lot of family reasons and different things like that. I needed to find something that would provide me the flexibility that I needed to be available, for my family and for my kids, and still be able to make a livable income. And so that was really my goal when I started searching after stepping away from ministry. I started searching and said, well, where can I work virtual? And I reached out to some contacts that I had just known in Amazon and other places of virtual, occupation. And man, it seemed like such a hard field to get into. And then was it going to be substantial enough to live off of? And I don't know. And so I came across an ad for Symmetry on ZipRecruiter, and that kind of snowballed. It's kind of funny because I set an appointment with someone to talk to them about getting into it, and did an appointment interview, and they're like, no, you're probably not going to work out. And so,
really,
I said, well, that's fine. I ended up calling them back and saying, well, where are we at? No. Well, anyway, so it didn't end up working out with that one. But at that juncture, I had already looked into Symmetry and plugged into their YouTube page. And man, I'd watched hours and hours of video, just seeing different success stories and hearing about the culture and hearing about the products and the process. And I said, you know what, this is something that for someone who, for me anyway, having the ministry background, trying to help people and help families and have that value to add to people, I just said, this is something that I really want to do, and to be able to make some decent money off it looks like, and then to have the flexibility, it fit everything that I needed.
All right.
And so I just said, this is what I'm going to do. And I don't care if somebody tells me no, I'm going to find somebody to tell me yes. And I was going through the YouTube on a long drive, and I got to Frank Brenna's interview with you.
Oh yeah, really? Okay, cool.
And I will listen to that whole thing. I said, man, this guy's awesome. Loved the whole thing. And then at the end, there was a couple of links to get in touch with Frank. Followed the links that same day, man. We were connected and moving in this direction, and it's been rolling full speed ahead ever since. Never looked back.
Yeah, a couple of points. I think at number one, do you know who Ben Feldman is?
I don't.
Okay, as you kind of study the legends of this business, you'll come across a gentleman named Ben Feldman. He had Guinness World Book of Records and premium sold year over year for many years, and volume of production. And he got declined. I think New York Life turned him down when he first applied because he thought they just wasn't the right fit. It showed him otherwise. Second of all, it's funny because there's a phrase in this business you're almost like a life insurance evangelist, an evangelist for life insurance. It's kind of funny how you kind of turned out, and something similar. You go out there and talk to people. Some people don't want to hear what you got to say, but they should hear about. They need to hear it.
That's exactly right.
And they need the help because this may be the last chance to get it. It's just so many similarities and parallels. So it's pretty interesting. So what do you do at Symmetry? Give us kind of a rundown of what your specialization is and the kind of products you sell in the market that you sell to.
Sure. So I primarily do mortgage protection. That's kind of the foot in the door, at Symmetry. That's the big thing. Obviously, it's life insurance and all of that. So there are instances where you deal just with someone who says, "I just want life insurance," or if they're in their upper their 70s, 80s, whatever. We obviously are dealing with final expense stuff, something like that. But for the most part, even that turns out to be mortgage protection to say,
right.
Hey, well, it can cover this many months or, critical period stuff, whatever. But so mortgage protection does do a vast majority of what I do. I've been certified through and working with the debt-free life program at Symmetry, and then have done a couple of annuities through it. But those have all come through the mortgage protection leads. So kind of get the foot in the door with that, help them in this situation, and then we work towards other options to stack value for the client.
Right. So what do you think the benefits are? I know you kind of hit on it a little bit. What are the benefits of selling mortgage protection versus other products in your mind?
Yeah, I think that, well, obviously, most of the people that I don't know, generalize there, but most of the people that do mortgage protection often already have life insurance, because they know what life insurance offers. They know the value that it brings to, say, a spouse or to children. If I pass away, it'll take care of them to replace my income. And that's before I was in the industry, that was basically the entire concept for me for life insurance. But what I find often is that people that we do mortgage protection for already have life insurance. And then they buy a home and they go, "Hey, man, all of a sudden the life insurance policy that I have is suddenly inadequate for now the lifestyle that we have, or the home now. If we're going to protect the home and protect the lifestyle, we need a little bit more." And so that, I think, is where the real value of mortgage protection comes in.
So you think it's because the shift in need has changed because they've, you didn't just buy a home, you just loaded up on a bunch of debt.
Right.
It's kind of a reason, wouldn't you say, to look at a policy? It's kind of at least get in the door, right?
It's a huge reason. And I talk to people often about that. I say, "Hey, you've already got this, but you had that long ago. Now we're talking about this. This is something separate. You still want to maintain that, but then also protect this."
Gotcha. So take us through a typical day. Like, what does your day look like when it comes to setting appointments, prospecting for appointments, and then running those appointments?
Yeah, I'm a morning person. I enjoy getting up. Most days, I'm up 6 o'clock, something like that. And I spend a good deal of time in the morning just prepping the day, spend a lot of time reading. And then, depending on how my appointments are, I can obviously do casework in the morning and things like that. Most of the huddle calls, the group calls, whatever, I'm in on most of those. Again, because what I have come to find here, and I can't speak for anywhere else in the country or anybody else's experience, but for me here, most people aren't too excited to talk about insurance at 10 in the morning. And so I just say, "Hey, man, I'm going to utilize my morning. I'm going to get my intake of coffee. I'm going to plug into the huddle calls, get involved with the group as much as I can. And then once that's done, then I usually go to dial, and I'll dial the afternoon away. And then, I'm terrible about the metrics, and I probably shouldn't say this publicly, but I don't keep a whole lot of track of how many dials I make. For me, it's all a matter of get the schedule full. I mean, if that requires 50 dials or if that requires 200 dials, man, fill the schedule, right? And then once you got the schedule to the point where you say, "Okay, I've got enough work, I've got to get all this ready, and now I've got to run appointments." When I was first starting, I was like setting hourly appointments, 1 at 2, 1 at 3, 1 at 4. And then I find, I need a little bit more time in between because you don't know how they're going to run. And so now I usually try and do at least an hour and a half between appointments, and because I'm doing mostly virtual. But yeah, just to me, it's the Symmetry has the system in place. They have the leads, you buy the leads, you call the leads, you work the leads, and that's it. I mean, it's not like this voodoo magic, man. I mean, it's the system's there. And to me, it's just you plug into that and you work that and you will succeed.
So, you made a good point earlier. I sometimes I understand the need or question. How many dials do you need to make a day to book appointments? But on one hand, I understand, but on the other hand, it kind of irritates me. It's like you do whatever it takes, man. You just pick up the phone and you keep. And that's kind of what your mentality is. So it's good.
That's
to hear
exactly
that,
right.
Like your job is to book a full day the next day. I don't care if it takes 50. I don't care if it takes 500. Do what it takes. And I think that's the right attitude to have. I was just more or less confident.
Yeah. The phrase I use often is just do the work. Yeah. Whatever that requires, just do the work. And then just know what you can do in a day for appointments.
Right.
So you're not, in an appointment, having to text somebody and say, hey, I'm going to be 20 minutes late. And then by the time you get into that one, you're having to reschedule an appointment for the next day because you didn't manage the time properly.
So you mentioned something as well. I heard the word virtual appointments. Did I hear right?
Yeah.
So you're not selling in the home of the client face to face. You're selling like over Zoom or something like that, correct?
Right. So I definitely started out heavy on virtual. On Zoom is particularly what I use. It just works well in the computer platform, whatever for me. So yeah, everything I was doing, I tried a couple over just phone calls.
Yeah.
Phone calls are like, I'm going to stick you in my back pocket and go chop wood. And you can talk to me about whatever you want to talk to me about. Right. Hang up. And, I've had very, very little success with that.
Right.
And some of that's just because there's not the personal engagement like we have here. Mm-hmm. And there's not dedicated time. When you're sitting down in front of your computer looking at a presentation, it's way different than doing laundry or doing the dishes while you're on the phone.
That's
so it gives a lot more just, I think, deliberate urgency to what we're doing.
Right.
Lately I have been getting some a lot closer. Like, actually, as I'm local here in Wichita, I ran an in-person appointment that's like 6 blocks away from me yesterday.
Okay.
And and there again, I had a schedule conflict. I ended up 2 hours over there with them, and I was running into my next appointment. And so I said, hey, can we pause this? Because I got to go. I had a virtual appointment here. So I ran back here, and then I ended up back at their house and sold the policy to them last night.
Right.
So it takes a little bit more time, but man, it's super effective in person. It's just, in our climate, in our, the COVID world that we live in, not everybody's up for that either. So just kind of be sensitive to that too.
I'm curious if you can kind of give us some numbers, because kind of the thing I've worried about, we don't do a lot of Zoom because my market in the Ford Insurance Group is more towards final expense, Medicare, older people who may not be as equipped to do something like Zoom. I'm curious, what's your show rate, roughly speaking? I know you may not know the numbers exactly, but you think like half of your appointments show, 3/4 better? I'm just curious.
Yeah, 3/4.
Okay, that's
I mean,
great.
if I set 10, you always have no shows.
Yeah.
I mean, I had one on Sunday, and I'm texting him, and I can see he's reading my text messages. Are you coming to the Zoom? And then no answer, so, they get it, right? And no shows are inevitable.
Right.
But, I think a lot of it is the establishment of your trust in the first initial dial, spending a little bit of time with them if they have the time and can allow it. And then follow up with people, beyond the tie down, staying in touch with them, even if the appointment's tomorrow, send them that text, send them that invitation from the calendar, send them an email, text them again in the morning, just to keep you in front of them. Because I mean, most people aren't living on the edge of their seat urgent about insurance.
No.
They're just not. If you don't make it urgent, it won't be urgent.
So you're from a tactic standpoint, it's not hang up the phone, then you wait for them on Zoom the next day. You're doing some follow-up work there just
Absolutely.
to kind of heat things up to get them.
Yeah, I'd say from original dial, even if it's in the next 48 hours, I probably have 5 touches of contact with them before our meeting.
Okay, cool. Cool. Well, that's great. 3 out of 4 to show up to a Zoom meeting is fantastic. So that's awesome. So what's a presentation actually look like? If you can kind of give us like a 30,000 foot overview from when you start the Zoom, what do you say? How do you transition into the presentation? How do you close? How do you run the whole thing?
So one of the great things again about plugging into the system is, Symmetry powered by Quality, man. They've got presentations basically set up for you. And I've custom made a couple of slides where, I feel like maybe communicates or connects a little bit better. And at least here anyway, in my demographic, I just try and tailor everything. Some things are out of the cookie cutter, are beautiful, and they communicate everything that needs to be said. Other things, maybe just I say, hey, we can just enhance this a little bit. And so you got to be a little bit flexible on that. But if my presentation is maybe 10 pages long or 11 pages long, 9 of those are Symmetry Quality pages. Right. And then I custom make maybe 2 out of all of that. Sure. And so yeah, stick with the system on it. But what I start off with, my first page is basically just the Symmetry logo, and it has my name and it has my agent license number on there. Mm-hmm. In my contacts with them after my initial dial, I always use a follow-up email that includes a picture of me and my family, my agent ID, a couple of things we do at Symmetry Mortgage Protection. And so they're already familiar with that. I've already encouraged them, if they have a desire to, man, take my license number, look me up, verify this is all legit. And so they're comfortable coming into the meeting, because if I've met somebody yesterday, how likely are they today to give me their social security number, sure. And their banking sure. information, right? Sure. So you have to establish trust. And right off the bat, if you can eliminate any doubt, because we live in the world of the scam, right? Everybody gets the robocalls. Everybody has somebody whose car warranty is expired and they need to re-up it, right? So to dispel all of that, I start off with just eliminating doubt. And then showing a picture of my family again says, hey, I'm a real person. I live in your community. This is, I keep my kids' pictures on the wall right behind me. And I say, hey, they're older now, but these are my baby pictures, it connects with people. You want to be real with people. And then from there, I go into the part about my role in it, saying, hey, I'm a broker. You're never going to pay me a dime. We'll never have a transaction. I'm not going to try and sell you or upsell you. What I'm going to try and do is try and marry up what the carriers are offering and what you can afford and what your need is, and try and meet those 2 things together. That's my whole purpose in all of this, is to try and help you get what you need for the price, for the best price we can get it. And people just kind of breathe a sigh of relief at that point, because then they know it's not a high pressure deal. It's not this going to be a big sales pitch. What it is you came to me. I mean, you filled out the lead, right? You filled out the information. So I'm trying to help you, and let's just figure out where this fits into the budget. And so I do that. And then I go through a couple of things about, what we want to accomplish. If we can get a full mortgage payoff, cover the whole thing. If we can't, what a critical period looks like what does it take to cover a year or 2 years, depending on what they would like to do best. And again, what fits into the budget. If you keep throwing at them, and this is what I do, if you keep throwing at them, does this fit into your budget? We all understand the need. We got to work into the budget. The budget that puts it takes the pressure off of, he's going to try and sell me $200 a month when I can only afford $50 a month. I don't care what the premium is. I want you to be comfortable with it. Right. And then I tell people, hey, at the end of the day, I have to lay my head down on the pillow at night and know I've done right by you. And you have to lay your head down on the pillow at night knowing I'm not going to be spread too thin. We have the right coverage. It really, if you can express the pain points of people to them that they've already pretty much probably by this point have shared with you, you can just kind of reiterate those things. It puts them at ease. Right. So that when I talk to them about living benefits, because that's the last page I do before I get into my quote, I do a living benefits page, obviously if it applies, not every case applies, sure. But talk to them about how, life insurance covers, the death benefit covers their family if they pass away, but the living benefit covers them if they become disabled. and to where in either case, the design is to keep you and your family in the home and protect that major asset to your family. And they're all going, everybody then is of course in agreement and on board and everybody wants it. Then we go into the quotes and I say, obviously, as we know, they're from conversation, say their mortgage is 150,000. I always put $150,000 option on there if they can, qualify for that.
Sure.
But then some people don't have life insurance. Say, well, the reason I included a $250,000 option is because maybe you would consider or need a little bit more. But obviously, it's all a matter of budget. Where does this fit in? Does this make sense? Does this make sense? Or do we need to adjust the numbers somewhere? Just try and make them as comfortable with the process, knowing that everything is tailored to them, to their need and to their budget. And people can receive that really, really well.
Perfect. Cool. So let's talk about leads. What kind of leads did you start with? What do you use currently? And then I'm going to ask you some like what pros and cons are. So start from there.
When I started at Symmetry, Kansas has some laws that they have to have a working current rep in order to work the state. And so when I got here, there were 9 old leads. And I called up Frank Brennis and I said, "Hey, brother, I'm going to starve to death out here."
Yeah, right.
and he said, "Man, look next door, get some non-resident license until we can get a GMR built up and
Right.
get things rolling in Kansas," which now it is. And now there's 250 or whatever in the state, more than I can work in a week. Right.
Yeah. Nice.
And so, which is awesome. But so I started out in Missouri, got some connection over, in Branson. And so I bought 150-cent leads over there, which Symmetry doesn't have the 50-cent leads anymore. But that's what I started with, about 100 of them. I said, I'm going to pour $50 into this thing, and I'm going to start.
Yeah.
I'm going to start rolling on this. And from the very beginning, it wasn't for me ever going to be a matter of, I'm going to try these a couple of times and then kick them out. For me, it was, I'm going to work it, and I'm going to call them until I get an answer. I'm going to call until they get a yes or a no. And that's kind of the words I've lived and died by so far. Whether they were, starting out with the 50-cent leads. Now I have a standing order for 10 A leads a week, 10 A1 leads a week. I did, Symmetry just run a sale, at the end of the year for some bonus leads. So I bought a pile of bonus leads that were 50% off. And, for what it's worth, and this has just been my personal experience, I have no doc on anything. I'm just, for me, the A1 leads have been the best producers.
What are A1 leads for audience? Kind of describe what that means.
Sure. So an A lead is like as new as they get. Somebody's just purchased a home, refinanced a home. They fill out the paperwork. It comes in. As soon as it's processed, it gets sent out. That's an A lead. So once it's been purchased, if say an agent can't get a hold of that person, that agent I think has 5 weeks exclusive to that lead. If they can't get in contact with them in that time frame, you still have access to it. Like if you get an A lead 5, 6, 7 weeks now, you still have access to it, but it goes back into the system to be bought by another agent. Then it becomes an A1 lead at a significantly reduced price.
Okay.
And then again, A2, basically it's A1 has been bought once, A2 has been bought twice, whatever, all the way down. And so
you like the ones that have already been bought once, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think? Because I would think that I think a lot of people think, well, they've been bought by somebody, which means it must have been worked. What's your experience actually been with them?
With the A1s, they've been great so far.
Yeah. Are you running across like situations where they've already talked to an agent or
sometimes I run across a lot of different things as far as that goes. Sometimes it's, we had somebody call and they never got back with us. They set up an appointment. They never showed up. We had somebody call once and they never called back. Or we got a message one time, but that was it. And because it's when you're running new leads and you're running, that's all you run. You go, well, there are people that are just on the spot ready to buy.
Right. And
so if you can put in, you buy 10 of those and 3 of them turn into a real quick turnaround, Well, you ditch the other 7 because it's so much more work than the 3. You make your profit on the 3, you buy 10 more, and you run that process. And I get it. It works. It's, like picking low hanging fruit kind of thing. But
Well,
the other 7, yeah, go ahead.
I'll have to say, I mean, you're being very nice about it. Anybody who's trained agents knows that there are a lot of those that buy those leads that never do the first thing with them. I mean, that's one thing that shocked me is like, I remember when I first started back in 2011, I was working for a company called Securus, 2012. And you could buy aged leads that never had been purchased or had been purchased, but nobody ever worked. And it's like, there's all this money laying around and it's like cheap leads, but they're good quality. Like, I want more of that. So you kind of be surprised. I know aged leads for some of us kind of get a bad rap, but that's kind of the thing, man. Like sometimes agents never work the things, they spend the money on them. So it's like, they're basically brand new. Yeah.
If I'm spending $8 on a lead, I'm going to work that lead because that's my investment. But when I put an A lead's like $38, right? To me, the first time I had an A lead hang up on me, I was like, oh,
you're right.
Like that's not gonna work, man.
Right.
So, and the reality of it is not everybody, is fully aware of everything they're signing when they buy a house. And they just, they fill out information and they come back and go, oh, that's what that was. So, but for the most part, the leads are incredible. If you can get them to answer and you're willing to talk to them and you're willing to call them until they answer, man, people are receptive. And what I've found, there's obviously always going to be people that go, oh man, get out of here. He'll cuss you out occasionally. You got to learn some thick skin, whatever. That's fine. If you get upset at people telling you no, you probably should maybe just go be a greeter somewhere. That's cool. But if you're okay with that, and one of the things that I love, the connection point there with ministry is we did door knocking. We invited people to church all the time. You hand them a tractor or whatever, and you say, hey, I'd like to invite you to church. You get off my porch, man. Slam the door in your face. Yep. I'm used to that. I'm okay with that.
So basically the same thing you've always been doing,
Yeah. And what I would say is that I get told yes a lot more in this business than I did in ministry.
Unfortunately, I believe that.
Yeah. And so for me, I really do focus in on the A1s. Like I said, I bought a bunch of A2s. I bought like 700 of them because they were cheap. And I just said, there's money on the table. And you made that reference that if 7 out of 10 don't get worked or don't get worked enough, then to me, that's a $30 discount. And I'm making big time return of ROI on that. So
100%. So in business, tell us how you stay motivated. And I know you've had a great, initial beginning as a new mortgage protection agent at Symmetry, but I'm sure you've had run-ins where you ran appointments and didn't make any sales or got frustrated, had a hard time getting appointments. How do you stay motivated? What works for you?
For me, like if I run 2-3 days and I haven't had good success, I'm like, I quit, do something else, man. You kind of get into a spiral about it. We were talking about this the other night, that it seems like sometimes you go through those seasons and then it just explodes, and momentum and motivation is huge. And so for me, I would say that the motivator is, one, I have no fallback plan. None. There's no safety net here. No. Plan B is plan A.
Right.
It basically is the way. So if it doesn't work today, I'm going to make it work tomorrow. If it doesn't work tomorrow, I'm going to make it work the next day, and I'm going to have to work harder, evidently, to make that happen. To me, the huddle calls are awesome. I love, just being on there and hearing other people, their struggles, to know that, while I'm sitting here at home, working from home, there's somebody on the other side of the country doing the same thing, facing the same struggles, and then occasionally finding the gold, in the ground there. And then you pull it out and go, hey, it has been worth it. And then you look back over, the last couple of days and say, yeah, but at the end of the day, if I sell 2 policies and I make $2,500, and that's a pretty good week. There's not a lot of places you can go and and do that and work from home and make that kind of money. And I might have been frustrated all week, but it can turn around just like that.
Right.
And so then you hear those testimonies, and then, our agency, the Brenna's agency, has incredible, to me, communication and involvement between Frank and Stefan and Sean Kim and others, that they're plugged into everything all the time. They're plugged into Facebook. We're plugged into Slack. We're on Whereby. Most nights now we're on Whereby with a group of people just like this, just like a Zoom meeting, when we're just talking about the day, talking about appointments, talking about success, jabbing at each other, challenging each other, and friendly competition, stuff like that. That all motivates me. I'm pretty self-motivated. I mean, for what it's worth,
Sure.
if I didn't have that, I'd still probably go out and do this. But it's fun when you can do it with other people and really enjoy the people that you work with. And
Right.
one of the things that really drew me to Symmetry was the discussion of the culture and the encouragement culture, and the way that it was always positive, and reinforcing that and saying, hey man, if you're having a bad day, it's okay. It's going to turn around. You have a great day. It's like, dude, and then I understand leaderboards are what they are. And I love, the high five, and it's awesome. And Kyle Kimbrell is a master of all of that. But I would say that if you plug in, and Stefan Brennis often says, stay by the heat, stay by the fire. If you plug in, it'll keep you motivated, even when you have a bummer day.
Right. Cool, man. Well, last question for you before we wrap it up. What advice would you give to those newer or struggling agents in the audience on how to turn around their luck and start getting better results selling insurance?
That's a loaded question, man. Because I think everybody's situation is a little bit different. And everybody's personality is a little bit different. I love people. I've been a people person most of my life. And so working in ministry, working in what we're doing now, I love it. And when I obviously there's obviously the personal motivator of, I have to make an income. And if I'm not going to be working full-time in ministry, I might as well be plugging into something that's going to make me a good living. If the Lord ever allows me to step back into ministry, I'd still want to do Symmetry with that, because of the relationships I've established, the value that I see in this. And I could see that being an amazing combo. But as far as for somebody who's coming in that's new, or somebody that may be struggling, what I would say is you have to figure out why you're doing it. If you're doing it for a paycheck, you get a paycheck anywhere. You can make a great paycheck here, but if that's why you do it, that's going to translate. That's going to translate to the people that you deal with on a day-to-day basis. If you dial and all you need, it's all business and it's all information, and you run an appointment and it's all numbers, and they don't catch any sense that you give a rip about them, they're probably going to say, yeah, it's just another product. It's just another bill. But if you can connect with them, and you can be personable with them, and you can express to them your intense desire to add value to their life, to their family, to maybe even a legacy for them, that communicates a lot to people too. Find a connection point with everybody that you can, even if it's not something that you are intensely passionate about. If you can connect a person, if you can connect a hobby, if you can connect a history, anything you can do to make a personal connection. Because at the end of the day, people buy you. They buy you as a person. That's where the trust comes in. Once they trust you because they know you care. I had a guy tell me the other night, when I was in his home, and he had been sold a policy, and it was what I figured to be some misinformation on the policy. And we went through it, and I just said, hey man, it is a good policy. It's just not what you were told you were getting. And by the time it was done, he told me, he said, Todd, just tell me what I need. I said, one, I'm not going to do that. Two, I could pretty much sell you anything at this point, right? And he said, yeah. And I said, so here's what, based on what you've told me, what seems to make sense. What do you think? And you always have to put it back in their ballpark. But where you can walk away, the one I told you about last night, that I had to go back to their house. When I left their place, they said, we just want to thank you so much for your time. And so much. And she just, when I walked out, his wife said, God bless you and your family, man, because you made a difference in our family. And I've had people weep on the phone with me. I've had people tell me, we consider you a friend. And when you can get to a point with people that you've never met before in a day or two of communication with them, where they walk away going, this person is real, really cares about us, and really wants to do as much as he can to help us, that translates to people in a very palatable way, in a very tangible way. And I would say that, between just the blessing of the Lord, a hard work ethic, and then being real and transparent with people, that's really all you need to be successful. We work in an industry that's very detailed, not just numbers, but fine print, all that. We should be able to be completely transparent with everyone. Education should be 90% of what we do. When you educate people and you're transparent with them and you're real with them, if they understand the need already, they're going to buy. We just have to figure out how it fits into the budget. And that's where I would say, if you could kind of encapsulate that and hand that to people, whether that's an agent going to work or that's a client that you're trying to reach and trying to help, it's not just a product, man. We are selling really the difference between what could be a hard time in their family and total ruin.
Right. Well, Todd, thank you for being here. If the audience is interested in reaching out to you more, where would you send them?
That's a great question. You can, I don't have my my owner's circle and all that stuff set up just yet.
Okay.
Obviously that's coming soon. But you can email me at t.hoyseth.quillity@gmail.com. You can call me, text me, 316-452-3818. I'm glad to talk with anybody about it, encourage you, help you, do whatever I can to, if it's struggling, trying to turn it around, and we can work through stuff. If it's an interest to get into the industry, I'd love to chat more with you about it. Whatever I can do to help, that's what I want to do.
Todd, thanks for being here, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
See you.
Appreciate the opportunity. We'll see you later.